American television sitcom The Hughleys aired on ABC from September 22nd, 1998 to April 28th, 2000, and then on the now defunct UPN from September 11th, 2000 to May 20th, 2002. It starred comedian Darryl Hughley as main character Darryl Hughley, a 35-year-old vending machine salesman, his wife Yvonne, played by Elise Neal, and their 2 children, 12-year-old Sydney, played by Ashley Monique Clark, and 10-year-old Michael, played by Dee Jay Daniels. The plot centers on Darryl moving his family from his predominantly black South Los Angeles neighborhood to West Hills, a wealthy, predominantly white neighborhood in the San Fernando Valley. As he and his family adjust to living there, they also battle with trying not to forget who they are and where they came from. The show also stars Darryl and Yvonne's new neighbors, Sally and Dave Rogers, a friendly, wholesome suburban white couple played by Marietta DePrima and Eric Allen Kramer, respectively. As time goes on, Darryl and Dave, and Yvonne and Sally become the best of friends. And lastly, rounding out the cast was former Living Single co-star John Henton, playing Millsap Morris, DL's lifelong best friend and sales manager of his company. Even though he was from the old neighborhood the Hughleys used to live in, he often drops by the family to lend a helping hand when he can. Since he does spend so much time over there, he eventually becomes close friends with Dave as well. The show would gain its fair share of critics, including Entertainment Weekly, who gave it a grade of C+. Hughleys' brash, winning personality makes him a TV natural, but so far, The Hughleys isn't the proper showcase for it. The Hughleys spent 2 seasons on ABC before being abruptly canceled, reportedly due to low ratings. Luckily, they found a new home at UPN and began airing in their Monday night lineup along Moesha, The Parkers, and Girlfriends. In a 2022 interview with Entertainment Tonight, DL explained how he came about the idea for the show.
Well, I actually lived in Los Angeles my whole life. I grew up here in LA. And I didn't even know white people lived here until I saw The Price is Right. And a white lady said, it's a teacher from Los Angeles. Like, what's the white dude doing here? But I moved from LA to West Hills. Yep. And it was the first time I'd ever lived around anybody with black people. But what I learned was it was a community and we all were starting out together and I met great neighbors and I would tell these stories to my manager and one day he said, that's a show.
Alongside starring in the show, DL also wrote and produced. The year before, he sat in on Dee Jay Daniels' Vlad TV interview to tell the story of how DJ ended up getting the role of Michael. DL had already seen him on various shows like In the House, Grace Under Fire, and Coach, and knew he was a very talented kid. DL also had a hand in casting, so he only needed to see DJ audition one time to know he was the perfect choice to play his son. DL knew the show was going to do well right from the start when they were shooting the pilot, even though, as the lead, he was the least experienced actor out of the bunch. And he was right. Despite little promotion or critical support, his black-centered suburban sitcom held viewers from the preceding show, Home Improvement, and held off competition from Fox TV's The PJs. So what did ABC do for the second season? They moved the show to Fridays. Some jokingly call it Black Friday, where the Hughleys would compete against the WB's The Steve Harvey Show and Bill Cosby in CBS's Kids Say the Darndest Things on one of the least watched nights of the week. DL tried to be diplomatic about it when asked by the Tampa Bay Times in 1999. When people get out of the idea that there is only one way to be black, then a lot of this will blow over. I was angry when I first heard about the schedule change, but there are people that Cosby reaches that we don't. I'm hoping all 3 of us survive and do well. As far as the real reason for why the Hughleys got kicked off ABC, DL says that the network wanted to own their product and figured the best way to do that was to make their own show. So, less than a year after the network's only black sitcom was booted, they launched a new situation comedy called My Wife and Kids. It stars an African-American comedian who portrays a successful business owner living in a middle to upper middle class suburb with his beautiful wife and photogenic children. It now becomes the only black sitcom on ABC. Ever since the network announced My Wife and Kids starring Damon Wayans as one of its mid-season hopes, there have been rumblings within the TV production community about the decision. On its most basic level, questions have surfaced as to why ABC would remove one comedy about a middle-class black family and a few months later schedule another. Although there are distinct differences, some close to the Hughleys suggest that My Wife and Kids is basically the Hughleys without star DL Hughley. The actors are different, but there are easy to spot similarities in themes and characters. Even some of the creative forces that were behind the Hughleys, specifically a director and a producer, went over to the My Wife and Kids camp. While many involved refused to discuss the issue publicly, the LA Times reported in 2001 that ABC's decision to drop the Hughleys from its schedule and then pick up My Wife and Kids is being linked to the economics of television. My Wife and Kids is produced by Touchstone Television, the television arm of the Walt Disney Company, which owns ABC. The Hughleys is from the Greenblatt Gentilari Studios, one of a handful of small independent production companies. While DL turned down requests for an interview with the LA Times, he did attend a news conference for national television critics in July 2000, where he was quite vocal about the conflict. It was very difficult to hear that ABC was having problems and didn't know where to place us. Then they get another show that is really my show. So that didn't fly to me that they didn't have any room for us, but then they would put on a show that they owned. He added that he even had a personal conversation with ABC Entertainment co-chairman Stu Bloomberg about the network's decision to put My Wife and Kids on the schedule, telling him, "You're doing my show all over again. The only difference is I'm not in it. I'm insulted by that, because we did the show that was based on my life. If you take my life from me and shoot it with another set of black folk, I've got a problem with that, honestly." Sensing the Hughleys was in trouble, producers of the show lobbied ABC execs to hang on to it anyway. Their argument, in part, was that the show's time slot on the network's floundering TGIF lineup was ill-suited for the series. But a push to have the show return to Tuesday night, where it had started, or to Wednesday night, where it could be paired with other adult-targeted sitcoms, was rebuffed by the network. According to sources, the producers were told ABC was moving away from family comedies on those nights, and there was no other time slot for the Hughleys. Some sources within ABC maintain that My Wife and Kids is worlds away from the Hughleys. In one instance, the Hughleys was described as a fish-out-of-water series, with DL playing an urban man who has trouble adjusting to a suburban lifestyle and his white neighbors. My Wife and Kids is being promoted as the 2000s version of The Cosby Show. Still, numerous comparisons have been drawn. Both shows are set in fashionable suburban communities, both husbands are successful business owners, both wives have professional careers, and both depict combative but warm family units. Interestingly enough, while The Hughleys was still on ABC, the network approached executive producers Robert Greenblatt and David Gentilari about developing a show for Damon Wayans, who had just signed a deal with ABC, according to insiders. They immediately passed on the project, partially because of their work on The Hughleys and a desire not to jeopardize that show's chances on ABC. My Wife and Kids was then developed by Touchstone, with Don Rio as a co-creator and executive producer. Thankfully, nothing much changed when the Hughleys went over to a smaller network. One thing DL was determined to still make happen, though, was to get them to syndication. And he did exactly that. Reruns of the Hughleys started airing in syndication in 2002, the same year that the show ended its original run. When asked about the cancellation, DL admits that he wasn't upset about it because he was just so tired. He had a lot on his plate with the show and stand-up comedy film The Original Kings of Comedy going on at the same time. He also felt that they'd done everything that there was to do, and he was proud and satisfied with what they'd accomplished. On September 2nd, 2024, The Hughleys will be streaming on Netflix and Hulu.